Well, hello again, and welcome once more to the Data Miners Union. Let me apologize first and foremost for the sound quality. You see, my dog ate my headset, and I'm going to post a picture because he looks so guilty. But he ate my headset, so I'm now recording just with the audio of the laptop. I hope it's not too bad. If it is, maybe I'll scrap the video. Anyways, what I've decided to do this week, and I had a couple of different ideas. One of them, Ruth from Kerbal, I won't say stole, but she used some of her data clairvoyance to do the thing on calendars. So, and apparently I'm not the only one that she's done this to. Excel is Fun has experienced Ruth's data clairvoyance more than once. So what I've decided to do instead, not as a form of revenge, but on one of Ruth's previous videos with DAX and Power BI, and I'll show you this specific one, and I'll even link to it up in the upper corner there if you want to go check it out. It's an excellent video. So Ruth was introducing a switch function and a selection function in DAX, so that when the user clicked on a certain currency, the table would do the conversions for it and also append in the currency symbol. And I thought that was a really good example, but I obsessed over it. I took it and went, well, this is neat, but it seems like every time you want to do something more, you got to write another line of code, and I'm lazy. So I figured I'd see if I could find a slight addition to what she was doing before. So if you'll allow me, we'll do a quick review of what Ruth had done before. I'm not going to redo everything she did. Again, the link for that is up in the upper right-hand corner. So what Ruth's original code was her goal was that you could select any of the currencies over here, have the exchange rate applied to the numbers, so you'd end up with the total sales and whatever the base units were multiplied by the conversion unit, and then have the symbol applied to it within the selection. So you'd have a different table over here that you'd be able to select. You would apply the conversion value and then put in front of that or behind that the correct unit. Well, how did she do that? Well, here it is within the DAX measure. We have the Kerbal method, which is still, I don't know DAX. In fact, I may just title this, I don't know DAX. But I do know some computer programming tricks, and within Ruth's method, which she was setting up, and rightly so, teaching you the switch parameter for being able to switch between if something is selected, whether it's euro on the one table, US dollars on the other. And within that, she'd grab the format of whatever the selected table value was for the conversion value, multiplied by the Kerbal conversion rate. And then here in text, she would apply the text symbols for how that dollar would appear. And this is still pretty neat, but I'm lazy. And I noticed that if you had to select 10 different currencies, you'd have to write 10 different switch cases in here to manage that. And I am way too lazy to do that. So Ruth had, within the original lookup table, just the currency abbreviations and the currency exchange rate. And those values were already successfully being looked up and selected upon with just this tiny equation. The only thing that had to change each time was the units of how the text or of how the dollars were being displayed. Everything else was identical, which led me to think, wait a minute, do we really need a switch statement here for anything other than the text values? And if we're just doing the text values, maybe we can control those in the same lookup table. So that's what I did. I went in and I created my own. And I added a few more options in here. I have the Canadian dollar in here as well, and kept the same conversion rates. But what I did was I added a column, and I did that just up in the source. When I popped this open, I created a column, and I typed in pretty much exactly what Ruth typed in manually within the switch statements, but we're holding on to them here as arguments. So then I was like, wait a minute. Let's see if we can simplify that call out here even more. So here's my example. It's pretty much identical to what Ruth's is. There's still a selection table out here. You can pick a different unit or a different currency, and it'll still convert that currency. But the real trick is that the equation for doing that is now just one line. In fact, I have it screenshotted down here and made a little bit wider. It's now just one line where I've got the format call out at the front, the total sell values multiplied by the currency rate. So that is identical to what Ruth had. But now for the second argument, instead of the text that was available in the previous one, where she was switching between US dollars, Euro dollars, and then anything else is defaulted to, and she was typing in the text, what I've done here is just handed along the values from the currency and using the currency format, which is the new column that was created. So now, when I select US dollars, we see the US dollar sign. Kroners, we see the kroners. Euro, we see euro. And Canadian, we see Canadian, even though it wasn't handled originally. So I did have Canada I added Canada into the original lookup. And when I select it, you see it's not showing up as Canadian. It's showing up as its default, because only the two euro and US dollars were being managed within this switch statement. So by adding one column to your control table, we could reduce the entire statement and actually forego use of the switch statement entirely and be able to handle an arbitrary number of lookups. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I did have one thing I wanted to add to that more. You see here when nothing is selected, there's a table error. It won't display anything, and the reason it won't display anything is there is not a single object that has been selected. Well, if only Excel if error statements existed in DAX. Well, they kind of do. For this particular case, the one I chose to use, and I've got this here on with errors, tab 3, is wrapped into that DAX statement, and I'll show you what method number 2 looks like. It's still the same one-liner, but I've also wrapped it in one more statement, and it's if has one value. And this is kind of like an if error function. If you have selected one value, then it's going to execute what's in the middle here. If not, it's going to have a default. And that default is going to be just select country or currency. So now, even when I have nothing selected, I haven't clicked anywhere in this table yet, the table hasn't errored out, but I can still go in and select any of my other units, still get them text formatted properly, and if I do select out of and have nothing selected, the table still renders. So there are my tricks, building on a little bit of what I already thought was an amazing video, but simplifying down this original expression so that we can handle an arbitrary number of countries or currencies, and adding in the ability to deal with the errors. Now I'll admit I went even further, and I won't include all of that in this video, but I decided to go even further with a whole lot of additional M, where I went out and found all of the well, maybe not all of the countries, but several dozen different countries within the systems. I am getting their current exchange rate from a web service, and this is an exchange rate that goes back to the beginning of this year up to today, and grabbing the currency units also from a lookup table on, I believe that lookup table was actually on Wikipedia. So I've got 3 different web sources, one for the currency conversion, one for the flags, because I wanted to find images for the flags to display here, and then one for the currency units that are actually used by that country. And what I've done is merge them all together here in the same lookup table, and it all works. Now, not all of the flags are rendering. I can select China here, and it'll come out with yen right in front. I can select euro. It'll have euro in front, and these conversion rates are not just made up. These are ones that are looked off of a site and merged in. I'm not going to go into great detail about how this one works unless there's a request for it. If you've liked the video, please feel free to subscribe. Also hit that like button if you wouldn't mind. And I am also going to be storing these files on my GitHub, and I'll have the links to the GitHub down below where these files are stored. So if you want to dive in and take a look at the original method and the 2 editions I've done, as well as maybe you want to drill in and see that crazy, weird, went out and grabbed everything, feel free to check that out as well. If you want a video explaining in more detail how I ended up doing that much crazier edition, let me know and I'll do another video. With that being said, thank you everybody, and click like and subscribe. Take care.